Hi, and welcome to the Lee and Betty Piester Centuri Rocket Collection, and I'm Lee Piester. Come on in. Here we've gathered items and records of historical significance from the founding of Centuri Engineering Company, also known as Centuri Rockets. We've created this video so that you can see this collection in its entirety. It's now February 2017. Later this year, much of this collection will be moved to the Seattle Museum of Flight. Over time, objects from this collection will be on display along with material from the G. Harry Stein and the Estes collection. The Seattle Museum of Flight has committed to gathering and preserving the history of model rocketry and its pioneers. The Centuri collection held here in this building tells the story of the founding of the company and how the early years of our country's race for space began a youth activity that has become a motivator for science education and a new modern hobby. This collection begins in 1953, 64 years ago, at a time when the U.S. found itself in a race versus the Soviet Union to launch the first man-made Earth-orbiting satellite. On October 4th, 1957, the world was catapulted into the space age when the Soviets placed the first satellite into orbit. The Russians had beaten the free world for supremacy in the conquest of space. Inspired by this competition and the sudden burst of rocket-related news, the youth of our nation wanted to learn and explore. In their desire to emulate the professional space scientists, thousands of young people began to design and build their own space vehicles and rockets. In 1953, model rocketry did not exist as available products or as a hobby. Amateur rocketry was their only available outlet. Here we see two of the many amateur rockets I built in the early 1950s. Made of special steel tubing, machined alloy nozzles, aluminum fins, and brackets, they were powered by homemade propellants. The two rockets above us are two-stage and are duplicates of sister rockets which flew to over 12,000 feet. The smaller one below has a gross liftoff weight of 41 pounds and contains 22 pounds of propellant. The larger one above weighs 99 pounds at liftoff and contains 51 pounds of propellant. These same rockets are shown in this 1955 photo in our garage workshop. Some of you may have heard that the concept for Centuri may have started with a college term paper. Indeed, it did. In my senior year, 1962, at Arizona State University, I was called upon to prepare an undergraduate thesis for our industrial engineering class. The assignment was to develop a product, form a corporation to create and sell this product, formulate the manufacturing process, design the manufacturing plant, determine the manufacturing and operating costs, create a business proposal to lenders to use in financing the company, to lay out a 5-year pro forma operating statement, and present this in writing and orally to the engineering department professors. Over the next 2 months, I wrote the thesis, The Formation of Centuri Engineering, a Business to Manufacture Model Rockets. My plan was accepted with a grade of A-, provided that I proceed with the actual business and that the professors would become investors. As facetious as this sounds, this exercise was extremely helpful in creating the real Centuri. Here, in my hands, the original of that thesis. This became our first business plan. For a NARM held in Phoenix, our staff put together this storyboard showing some notable photos and events. Centuri was selected by Boy Scouts of America to create a Cub Scout model rocket derby. including rockets, launchers, and the contest rules. The rocket could be built 8 different ways. A major part of Centuri's product line, the starter sets contained everything needed to launch. Here we see one of the earliest sets in a plain brown box. As time progressed, we learned and improved packaging. Adding hobby dealers required improved graphics. The simplicity of mail-order packaging wasn't enough. Packaging had to tell the story of how it all worked. Good packaging requires good artwork. We searched at length to find good artists who could execute rocket movement for a dynamic package. We see original art in oil and acrylic, and finally, the package. Some of these are from the Stellar line, which we created for the big box stores such as Kmart. Kmart wanted a unique group of kits and sets different from what hobby shops were selling. Other boxed packages were created to protect the delicate kit parts, including the Saturn 1B, the Saturn V, and the Little Joe. In October 2006, Mark Mayfield created Launch Magazine. This premiere issue celebrates 50 years of model rocketry, providing reviews of the works of Orville Carlisle, Harry Stein's model missiles, Vern Estes, and Centuri. Annually, beginning in 1962, we debuted our new products through our catalog. Those were mass mailed to, in some cases, as many as 200,000 people at a time. Here we see steps taken in making a new catalog: the outline, the rough, the comps, and the thumbnails. Let's talk about rocket motors. Aside from testing samples, we saved the firsts off production runs for our collection, including A's, B's, and C's. Here are experimental motors with filament wound glass resin casings. Over 50,000 Minimax E and F's were produced. And finally, Interjet composite D's, E's, and F's. In the process of locating collection materials, we unearthed these original drawings. Launcher concepts, trade show exhibit booths, nose cone mold drawings, rocket machine drawings, molds for the Little Joe Apollo capsule, launcher parts. The retail hobby trade needed merchandisers with which to promote sales of the products. Here you see artist concepts of some of those merchandisers and some of the proposed kit packaging. Over the 19 years that Centuri operated, we produced over 325 different rocket kits, 40 of which you see here in this grouping. And throughout the room, you'll see a number of them in built-up form. Poly bags were how we started out. It was an inexpensive method to package, and through the years, even though we experimented with boxes and blister panels, the poly bag has still been the most popular and preferred packaging by the consumer, primarily because you could turn it over and see all the parts inside. So if you go into a hobby shop today, we see lots and lots of poly bags. For a NARAM held in Tucson several years ago, I built 2 identical Commanders, and I donated one of them to the organization to be auctioned off as a fundraiser. Centuri's power pad and servo launcher, and also its original wooden launcher, created at the very beginning of the company. Betty and I want to thank you for your participation in this hobby and the support that you've given Centuri through the years. These were some of the best years of our lives.